Hey there, y'all. Tim Risto here, host of the Creative Christians Podcast, back again for another new episode of Afterthoughts, where we discuss all things related to Christians, creatives, media, and culture. Recording this on Tuesday morning, right after the Labor Day weekend here in 2024. I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. I hope it was a blessed one. I hope it was restful, and that you're able to take on the week here ahead. And as promised last week, I said we'd take a look at the numbers for the Kendrick Brothers' new film, The Forge, coming off of this Labor Day weekend, which is its second weekend in release. Last weekend, the previous weekend, its first weekend in release, it made a little over $6 million. When we took a look at the numbers last week, around Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was, it was sitting at about $8.4 million. Poised pretty strongly going into the Labor Day weekend. So I want to take a look at the numbers, now coming out of the weekend and see how it did. Traditionally, holiday weekends are a strong time for films because a lot of families are together. They go out and see movies. Usually they can make a good profit during holiday weekends. So how did The Forge fare over this holiday Labor Day weekend? Let's take a look at the numbers. And while I normally go to Box Office Mojo, today we're going to look at thenumbers.com because they actually came out with the numbers first. Box Office Mojo had some estimated numbers that's been up for a few days that reflected kind of estimates for the 4-day Labor Day weekend, but the numbers actually came out with the official numbers here first today. So we're going to jump over there and take a look at what they have listed. So here we are at the numbers. Domestic box office here is standing at just a little over $16 million for the 4-day weekend. And that is a very strong take. That's pretty much in line with what the estimates were that I saw over on Box Office Mojo. And actually they had them here at the numbers too, but I think it was like 16.038 were the estimated numbers. And this is 16.018. So really very, very close to the estimates. So that is a strong box office for this film, especially for a faith-based film, and I think pretty much in line with most Kendrick Brothers films. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. We're going to come back to this chart in a minute, but let's scroll down to the daily box office performance here and take a look at the weekend. When we first looked at this back here on August 27th, that's I think where we were last week, and we had that 8.4 million amount. On the 28th, it went up to just over 9. On the 29th, it went up to 9.7. The 30th, 10.8. We entered the Labor Day weekend there, so 10.8. Then the 31st was 12.4. On September 1st, jumping into September, 14.3. And then we finished up on Monday with that figure we just looked at, a little over $16 million. So that is a nice, strong opening, second weekend, I should say, for The Forge, and very encouraging. It had a good, healthy weekend. So it doubled the number that we were looking at last week, and that's a good, strong performance. So glad to see that. It looks like a lot of people went out to see The Forge. I think it's growing well based on word of mouth and good reviews. So that's very, very encouraging to see. Let's scroll back up real quick to this chart here, this graph, which I don't think Box Office Mojo has something like this. So it's kind of unique here at the numbers. This is the domestic box office for The Forge. And here, just as a quick little reference, it says here, the shaded area represents the expected performance range for a film based on its opening weekend box office. 95% of films fall within the shaded area. If a film trends towards the top end of the shaded area, it has good legs compared to the average film. If it trends towards the bottom end of the shaded area, it has poor legs. The predictive area is based on movies from the past 5 years. So you can see from this, it's kind of fascinating, you can see from this where, the line there, that darker line that goes through the shaded area, how The Forge has performed here since it opened. So, you look back here, August 22nd, it says previews. So 600,000 is what it made in previews. That's probably the night I went, that Thursday night before it officially opened is usually considered kind of preview nights, and that's when I went. So that's what that number reflects, basically, I think, Thursday night. And then, you move on to 2.4 million for, the 23rd, 24th, 4.7, and so on. So it goes up from there. So then as it hits, as it gets to opening there, underway a few days, then you see the shaded area begin. And it's, again, if it's on the top end of the shaded area, it's obviously got strong legs. And you can see it stays hovering pretty much from the beginning to along the whole top end of that shaded area until now, when we look at here coming out of the holiday weekend, it is busted beyond that to where it's 16, a little over 16 million. And you can see the numbers in parentheses there. The 15.29 is really the top end of what, kind of comparative performance would have been, 95% of film. So it's already now starting to outperform, the expectations or the typical performance film. So it is really a good, strong start for The Forge. And I'm very excited to see this film performing so well, and I hope it continues to do well. Again, strong word of mouth, a great storyline with great acting. This bodes well for the film, and potentially, this is early on, really in the film's life. Although, of course, films don't stay around the box office, in theaters as long as they once used to back in the days. But still, it still should have many, many weeks ahead of it. And if so, that just bodes really well. I mean, this could certainly outperform War Room, which we looked at last week too, which I think made around 74, 76 million at the box office. So actually, let's go ahead and take a look back at the last few Kendrick Brothers films again, just for comparison. I think last week I called War Room the latest Kendrick Brothers film prior to The Forge. And I was in error of that. One of my subscribers pointed out to me, thank you so much for pointing that out, that actually Overcomers was the more recent of the Kendrick Brothers films prior to The Forge. So I don't know how I forgot the Overcomers. But so let's take a look at Overcomers and War Room and just compare their final box office takes. And we can kind of see how The Forge is faring now coming out of this weekend compared to how they performed after a similar number of days. So let's hop over and take a look at those real quick. All right, so let's start here looking at their last film, which was from 2019, Overcomer. And here the worldwide box office landed at 38, just a little over 38, almost $39 million. Domestically, they made 34.7, internationally 3.3 million. So not as strong as what War Room is. We'll go back and look at that again here in a moment. But then they also made, 8.9 million off of DVD sales and 4.6 off of Blu-ray. Still a lot of people buy DVD. That's interesting to me. I'm a big Blu-ray and 4K UHD fan, as most of you fans of my channel know. But interesting, DVD still is pretty strong. That's why they keep releasing them, I think, to both fans of both formats. But let's see here. If we look down, so opening weekend for Overcomer was 8.14. Again, this was back in 2019. Legs, it had 4.26 in terms of legs. Domestic share, 91.1%. Oh, by the way, the legs is, how long it will last, how strong it looks in the long term. They gave it 4.26. Domestic share was 91.1% of the domestic box office. Here, they list the production budget, which was listed at $5 million. And what's interesting to note behind that is the worldwide box office for Overcomer was 7.6 times the production budget. So on a $5 million production budget, they made that $38 million. So even though that may not compare as well to War Room, which again we'll look at here in a minute, it's still 7.6 times the production budget. So again, as we talked about last week, they keep their budgets low and then make a good profit on it. So that's just so important. Really work with a reasonable budget. Go in with reasonable expectations as to what your film is going to make. And Kendrick Brothers are very smart. I think they're smart businessmen and they're smart in terms of their biblical message too. You combine those two and you've got a winning combination. And I know they've talked about learning while doing. They learn something on each film they do, and I admire them for admitting that and just kind of forging ahead, pun intended, to create films that are successful on multiple levels, both in terms of their biblical message, their clarity of their biblical message, and their business model for the box office. So anyway, theater counts here was 1,723. Opening theaters, they went up to 2,293, almost 2,300 theaters. About 5.5 weeks average run per theater. So interesting to look at that. Then if we go over and look at War Room from 2015, the film before Overcomer, there again, they had a much larger box office take there, 73.9, basically almost 74 million. They also had very, very strong physical media sales, with DVD sales running to 41 million and Blu-ray sales at almost 9.5 million. So they made another almost 51 million in domestic video sales between DVD and Blu-ray. That's pretty impressive. So, that's very, very strong. If you look down here, the opening weekend for War Room back in 2015 was 11.3 million. Legs was a little stronger on that, 5.97. Domestic share, 91.6, about the same. That production budget was only 3 million. But the worldwide box office was 24.7 times the production budget. So again, that one just did really strong. And I think that may be part of why they're tying in The Forge a little bit into the universe and the storyline of War Room, because that one was really well received. Overcomer, not nearly as strongly. Now, again, we can look at some of the reflections in the time, 2015 versus 2019, that the two films, War Room and Overcomer, came out. There's some differences. There's some, in terms of times and reception to films and what was going on each of those years. But I think also the films themselves and the storylines they covered, War Room, I think, had a much greater appeal to it. I think we're going to see that reflected in The Forge as well as it continues to go forward. Theater counts for War Room was 1,135 opening theaters. They had a max of 1,945 theaters, a 7.1 week average per run per theater. So anyway, they had a little bit more going for that. So War Room was a very successful film for them. And I have to apologize. I probably got lawnmowers here outside my window, so you may be hearing a little bit of that in the background. Apologies for that. But anyway, back to The Forge real quick. 16.018 million for the Labor Day weekend. That is a really good, strong run for The Forge. I would just say, if you have not seen the film yet, go out and see it. Now is the time to support this film. If you haven't seen my review, take a look at that. I'll put a link in the description down below. But definitely support this film. It's a good film. It is well worth supporting. I would say even more so than Sound of Hope, although Sound of Hope, again, I thought was a very good film too. I think this one's better. It's more evangelistic, which usually are films, again, I shy away from things not being organic, but this one's very organic in its evangelistic elements, as I said in my review. So well worth supporting this film. Get out, support The Forge, see it multiple times in theaters. Don't wait for streaming if at all possible. Get to the theaters and see this film. It is a quality Christian film with a very good faith-based message, very biblically sound. So support this film. It's doing strong. Let's continue to help keep it going strong into the next several weeks. And if you can only get out on a weekend, see it, go see it on the weekends. If you can spare an evening during the week, go see it during the week. but a film well worth supporting. So we'll continue to keep up with the numbers here on Afterthoughts. So as the weeks go by, I'll keep updating you here and there about how the box office is looking. But right now, it's off to a great, strong start. So that bodes well for Christian films and filmmakers like the Kendrick Brothers. Anyway, I hope you're doing good. Enjoy the rest of your day. May God bless your day. And we'll see you next time on Afterthoughts. Don't forget, above all else, stay in God's Word. Blessings, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.